amazing work by this young officer trying to do everything he can to save this young girl's life. But unfortunately, this is a scene that we're seeing across our nation far too often. Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow when you're driving into work, I want you to look out your left window and I want you to look out your right window, and I want you to tell me, do you see large amounts of opium fields growing? Do you see huge, vast amounts of coca fields growing? And the answer is obviously no. And what I'm trying to get across here is that all of this that we're dealing with, from methamphetamine, heroin, fentanyl, and cocaine being imported at mass quantities into our country, is all coming from the Mexican cartels and from an unsecure border that we're dealing with at unprecedented levels. In 2012, I cannot figure out why our cocaine seizures had dropped so dramatically. And yet looking at the data, I could see where our heroin and methamphetamine seizures were up hundreds of percentages. So I began calling my partners within the intelligence community and other organizations to try to figure this out. And what we found was that Sinaloa cartel had already began moving and finding new markets globally, and that one of their new markets was Russia. And that's where the cocaine was going, as the opioid addiction had taken effect in the United States, and Sinaloa cartel and Cartel Jalisco New Generation were pushing very hard in that arena. So where does the heroin come from? Well, it comes from three major states: Sinaloa, Guerrero, and Durango. Those states have poppy growing all over the sides of the mountains within just the last 5 years. So you see, this goes to show as to how the cartels can see a gap in the market and make huge adjustments very rapidly and very quickly to be able to push a new product into the marketplace. Government 5 years later has still not made the hard direction change and focus to what occurred 5 years ago. This is exactly why you see local and state law enforcement agencies thinking completely different in the 21st century and going to a real-time preventative model. So there are a few things that you have to do in the 21st century to be successful. First and foremost, you have to leverage data. Data should drive everything you're doing. And in our country, we're operating on what's called the Uniform Crime Report. And I don't have time to go into detail with it, but I will in the coming weeks. But the Uniform Crime Report was created in 1929 and does not see any transnational crimes that are being committed, which is why our nation has been blinded by seeing this problem. So you have to have data that shows you where the problem is beginning to occur so that you can then take action to prevent it from spreading and then go after it. But you've got to be able to do that real time, and without data, you're never going to get there. Third, you must think beyond your traditional authorities and jurisdictions. Why? Because you have to know what's coming before it hits you. That means you need to be looking beyond the borders of the United States and working with partners around the world. And then the last one, and that is taking action. Let me give you an example. Have you ever noticed when something happens overseas, what's the very first thing you see from New York City Police Department? The commissioner comes out, he says, we've seen this event overseas, and here's what we're doing. Without action, all the collection and all the information in the world doesn't matter.
That we are continuing to significantly try and ramp up our first line of defense, which is still the most effective line of defense, which is intelligence gathering, the prevention of these actions before they occur.
This attack. At the same time, wheels started turning here in New York City. Was the target the Bastille Day celebration? What Bastille Day celebrations were going on in the city? Elements from the emergency service unit, the heavily armed Hercules teams that come with patrol or bomb detection dogs, emergency service unit personnel, highway patrol, intelligence personnel were dispatched to Bastille Day celebrations that were ongoing.
As fast as things are evolving in today's world, our government must be more flexible and able to handle these problems. Ladies and gentlemen, if we can't get the little things right, we're never going to get the big things right. So what do? First and foremost, we build the wall. Second, we fund U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Those are amazing men and women who will get the job done. I have 100% faith in them, and I know they'll be able to secure that border. Third, we leverage the Department of Defense and the intelligence communities to go after the Mexican cartels, collaborating with the Mexican government and globally to crush them. DEA is in a support role. They are no longer the primary in Mexico. Fourth, we go after Tier 1 gangs, just as you're starting to see the Department of Justice doing, where they're rallying the Homeland Security enterprise to go after MS-13. We take that exact approach with all levels of the Homeland Security enterprise at federal, state, and local levels. That's the right move. Fifth, we then take on regular street gangs, and then the bottom feeders, which are of course your pimps and your normal street thugs. This is the nation that put a man on the moon. I figure we can hunt down a few criminals. Happy hunting, and go get them. See you next week.